All right, so what you have are three methods for the appraiser to determine the value. You've got the substitution method, which uses houses that have a history that we can go back and find houses that have already sold. We've got the cost approach for houses that don't have any history, and we base it upon the cost to build another house. And then we've got an income approach that bases the value on the amount of income it's brought in, whether it's a net income or a gross income, depends on which method they use. Right? And I told you highest and best use will determine which one of these he uses, right? I told you that, right? Everybody shake your head, right? Yeah? Okay, I lied to you. Because what he's going to do is all three of them. And then he's going to use this process of reconciliation. Reconciliation now brings in highest and best use. And he uses highest and best use to determine the probability of which one of these it's really going to be. So let me show you an example. So there's houses over on the west side of the road over there on 31 that look like a house, but maybe it's used as a commercial. He may say, well, if that's a house, let's do the sales comparison approach and I'll get a value. So he pulls the comps and he works it like a house, and he says, okay, so for the sales comparison approach, I get a value of 100 grand by pulling the comps on that 3-bedroom house. Then I'm going to do the cost approach because there's a vacant lot in there and maybe I could build a new one. So we're going to do the cost approach, and I get $110,000 in the value based on some of the other costs, and I figured the depreciation, added the land back in, and I get that. But it could be a commercial, so we're going to do the income approach, and I get $120,000 by basing it on the income it generates, because I know the cap rate's X in that neighborhood. So what he does is all three of them. Then he goes back and does reconciliation. This is where highest and best use truly comes in. Because what he's going to say is this. What's the probability that it's going to be commercial? Probably about 90%. So he's going to take 90% of 120. What's the odds that we're going to build a new property there? I don't know. You know what? Let's make it 0. So that means there's 10% chance it's going to be sold as a house. So 10% of the 100's 10 grand. 90% of 120 is what, 108? You add those up, you get a value of 118. Bada bing, he's done. There is no math problem on the test about reconciliation. What I want you to understand is reconciliation is where he takes the probability of each one of those happening and then figures that value times that percentage. All right? So it's very easy to see now if he goes to appraise my house, my new house in Nashville, before he even starts, if he's pretty smart, the odds it's going to be commercial. 0. First of all, it's not zone commercial. It's on a cul-de-sac. No one's ever going to do it. So why do I really need to do the income approach? Because I know in the reconciliation process, 0 times anything is 0. So I don't even need to do that. There are no vacant lots back there. It's not a new build house. So what's the probability I'm going to have to use the cost approach? Say it again. 0. So that means it's going to be the substitution approach, 100%, which is what? Comps. Now do you see why on a residential real estate, when you pull the comps, you should get the exact same number as the appraiser, because what's he doing? Same thing you're doing. He's only got a license to kill a deal. All right? He's the appraiser. He's going to go out in the MLS, pull the comps, bing, 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 adjust the value. You're going to list it, go bing, 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 adjust the value, and tell your seller, oh, it's between 145 and 150, and he does the appraisal. Guess what number he better come at? Between 145 and 150, because you guys did the exact same thing.
But you don't know what the appraisal comes back until you say, well, your offer of 199 is accepted on a house or whatever the case may be, and they say you're approved for that amount. That's what within the appraisal.
You get to see the appraisal. The buyer does.
Oh, yeah, well.
All right. As the seller, you're right. You're going to hear, hey, the appraisal came back good. Typically, buyers will tell their agents, and agents will tell the other side, hey, the appraisal came back above our purchase price. Oh.
But is the
Nah. You didn't get enough money out of it. Yeah. Well, they should be pretty dead on if you think about it. You're doing the exact same process. The only problem you're going to run into is how much is half a bath worth. The appraiser is going to, he might say it's $3,000. You might pull the comps and go it's $2,500. So now there's a disparity of $500 there. So that's what I'm saying. You guys should come pretty close to what he's doing if you're good at what you've done and you've done the appraisal enough and you've done, oh, I'm doing this house in Center Grove. I live in Center Grove. I've listed 47 million houses in Center Grove. I know exactly what a half a bath's worth. It's $5,800 because I sold one last year at this price and this one was a half a bath, $5,800 more. I know exactly. So when the appraiser comes up and does his answer or the appraisal, it better come in there. And like you asked earlier, do they get the purchase agreement? Yeah, they do. So they kind of already know the target also they're trying to hit. So if they got a purchase agreement at 158 and he's looking at the houses, oh, I can see a 157, I can see a 161, I can see a 155, a 159. I ought to be able to get a 158 out of that group. By the time I do my reconciliation and add them up and adjust them, yeah, I agree with 158. Do the deal. All right, so that's a very long chapter, a lot of information. There are definitely math questions on the exam. Understand the cap rate, understand depreciation, economic life, and all that stuff. Any questions before we get done? Guess not. Hasta la vista, baby.